Welcome to Virtually Constrained Dancing, Encoding Language and Movement and Sound. I'm Devon Frost, and today I'll be presenting on a program and paper developed with Shannon Steele and Professor Lucas Bang. Last summer, we worked on developing tap encoding decoding as part of an independent undergraduate research project funded by Harvey Mudd College. TED is a performance art program developed in P5JS designed to be used in partnership by a tap dancer for decoding percussive audio. Essentially, someone decides what text they want to encode, they translate it into Morse code, then they perform their encoded message by creating percussive audio that meets the programmatic constraints for dots and dashes laid out by TED. TED then can listen to this audio and decode Morse code out of it, then translate it back into text. TED began as an independent project. I'm a dancer and was an undergrad CS major looking for a reason to put on my tap shoes in the middle of a busy semester. I started thinking a lot about the nature of encoding meaning into dance, which led to a preliminary version of TED being developed. Here you can see a screenshot of the new version with the visual interface we built out last summer. In the top left-hand corner, there's the Morse code that TED interpreted out of the audio with the translated text beneath it. There are also various audio visualizers you can see, which are both entertaining to watch and show some audio input information as the performance happens. We thought a lot about the nature of being explicit about one's meaning in dance during development. Expressive dimensions of dance have traditionally been reliant upon both the abilities of the dancer to relay choreographic intent and the audience's ability to interpret the intent within the dancer's movement. But the audience really relies on their individual cultural understanding of what movements or body expressions convey. This leaves a lot of room for interpretation. There may be outside influences such as music, costume, scenery, or dialogue which can make meaning more explicit, but we felt that tap dancing as a form, especially without those external aids, is generally even harder to parse than other forms of dance, since a lot of the form focuses on using the whole body to help the feet produce clear audio. This leaves a lot of room for new ways to make tap dancing more explicit when desired. That's what we did with TED. But it's a little hard to understand exactly what I'm talking about when I just speak in the abstract about TED like this, so let's watch a quick clip of TED in use with me tap dancing. Now let's talk about how TED works. As a quick reminder, to perform with TED, one must choose a piece of text, translate it into Morse code, encode that Morse code into their percussive audio. Then TED will listen to the audio, decode the Morse code out of it, and translate it back into text. As I said before, TED runs on P5JS because this allows us to host it live on the web, and we can rely on the draw function, which runs 60 times a second to take in audio data. From there, we can analyze that data using peak detection. And fast Fourier transform analysis, which allows TED to detect when there's significant audio that needs to be listened to and when that audio begins to decay towards silence and should be analyzed. The audio analysis looks at the last chunk of noise data collected between silences. This data is totaled up, and if that number falls above the threshold, it produces a dash. If it falls below the threshold, it produces a dot, and then we also do some background noise filtering. The draw function also listens for when a full second of silence is left by the tap dancer. This is them indicating to TED that the Morse code that has been tapped out is ready to be translated into a character. During the development of TED, we had some choreographic observations on the experience of performing with TED. Now, it's worth noting that I am the sole tap dancer on this project and the only one who has performed with TED in any official capacity, which means that all choreographic observations are limited to our speculation and experiences. Our setup for demos and performances can be seen here. I would set a laptop on the ground facing me so that I could see the outputs from TED, which we would also project behind me for the audience's viewing. Through these small batches of testing performances, we found the audience interpreted the dancer program system as one cohesive unit of performance. When surveyed, their attention was evenly split between the various components of the performance, which made us feel like TED enhanced their experience and engaged the audience. Only when a mistake was made somewhere in the system did it become apparent to the audience that the performance was truly made of component parts. When a mistake occurs, such as a mistranslation, the audience looks to the dancer as the failure in the system. I would become a humanized component removed from the clean clockwork, and as the veneer fell away, I would have to make new decisions on the fly. The program, on the other hand, wasn't looked to as the fallible object, even though it could also be the source of the mistake. Through testing and performances, I also made some observations about the nature of adhering to programmatic constraints while dancing. I was of course bound by the phrase that I wanted to dance and the sequence of dots and dashes that would encode that phrase. I found certain steps were more suited to performing dots or dashes because of their length, and the necessary pauses to indicate to TED that a dot or dash was finished, or the longer pauses to indicate that a character translation needed to occur, also act as shaping constraints. Overall, the programmatic constraints affected what steps could be performed, their sequencing, and the timing, which really shaped the performance to have a very distinct vibe. These programmatic constraints may sound like a lot to think about while performing, but we found a degree of embodied cognition and extended embodiment occur as one works with TED. Embodied cognition is known to occur in dance when movement flows become part of the cognitive process of performing. Tap shoes also become an extension of the body as someone becomes accustomed to them. You don't spend all your time thinking about which pieces of your tap are hitting the floor when you're performing steps you know. This follows Heidegger's theory of tools becoming an extension of the body, such as when using a fork, you're not acutely aware of the fork, it's simply part of your arm and your eating motions. As I worked with the program, I developed a sense of which steps consistently produced a dot or a dash, reducing the mental load required to decide what step needed to occur next. With the decreased computational load of choosing steps, live adjustments eventually became much easier. As I explored the program, I also became more accustomed to internalizing outputs from TED, increasing the embodied cognition that was occurring. Eventually, something akin to the practice of live coding as a form of entertainment arose. As embodied cognition occurred, we felt that an innate sense of partnership developed with TED. Computers are often seen simply as a tool to extend human computational ability, but when working with TED, it was not just a tool to extend the dancer's cognitive ability. Instead, a partnership arose in which all progress must be made by working together and being responsive to the other's actions. It felt the same to perform with TED as with a human partner in tap improv. Although predefined constraints may be laid out or may evolve through an improv session, you simply cannot tap whatever you want. A tapper must be in tune with their improvisational partner and responsive to their actions. The dancer and TED both rely on this degree of collaboration and responsiveness to be successful as well. The program relies on human input, as without someone producing audio and encoding language, it's inert. In exchange, the dancer relies on the program to translate the encoded audio. A dancer could perform Morse code-based choreography alone, but their meaning would be lost. The partnership inherently leads to parallel processing between the dancer and the program in a tight feedback loop of collaboration. In summary of our discussion today, we felt the demand on the dancer for continual awareness of the outputs and the functionality of the program demonstrates that TED is not only a tool for decoding language, but also a partner for the dancer. Embodied cognition allowed for this flow in a tight feedback loop leading to a cohesive performance. The audience also enjoyed the various aspects of TED and the novelty of it being used in a performance due to the explicitness introduced to tap dancing. Moving forward, we think this would be great to use in various kinds of performance art, whether it's a show or performing poetry. If you have any interest in using it, please get in contact with me. I would love to collaborate, either tap dance for you or show you how to use TED. It also feels like a great educational access point. We know little girls everywhere are put into dance all the time, and this would be a very fun way to give them a look into embodied cognition and the different ways we can use technology. If you want to read more about TED, you can go to this first link, and if you want to play with TED, it's live on the web at the second link. Thank you so much.